Hi, I'm Gloria Puerta from Feed and Fortify Community Organization, today in Latino role model. And you know, be yourself. Try to have your purpose in life and be a legacy of service.
My name is Jelitza Rivera, and I'm a founder and mentor of Daughters of the Mighty King mentoring program for young girls. I am inspired and encouraged to be here because I want to see a new generation rise up.
This show is brought to you by Boricua Beer, coming to your local retailer in September.
Good evening and welcome back to another segment of EduTV. We're kicking off the new school year. What is this, 2015-2016? And as you know, we talk about all of the issues that impact K-12 education. And we're lucky enough to have with us today as a guest, Dr. Jelitza Rivera, Adjunct Professor, College of Education, University of Central Florida. Welcome.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Okay. All right. Hot off the presses, school grades. You used to be a teacher, so you're still connected and you work with young teachers now. Just kind of tell us about that. What is it that you do and what are some of the things that you see in education and the type of impact that you can?
What I do with teacher development, one of the things that I do is I provide the pre-service teachers. These are the students that are aspiring to be teachers. And I provide them with education and training on how to work with English language learners in the classroom, whether they're going to be science teachers, math teachers, language arts teachers, or any teacher of the kind. They still are going to have ESOL students in their classes. And so I work with them to teach them what strategies they can use for those students.
Okay, funny, not funny that you should say that. It is an actual fact that Osceola County is experiencing an influx of Hispanic students. Can you kind of tell us what impact that you think it may have? Because we don't know. I mean, we don't have crystal balls, but a lot of times people may say, oh, you know, it's the language barrier, and a lot of the minority Hispanic kids may be driving down test scores. What do you say to that?
Well, one of the things that we're going to see, this influx of Hispanic students coming into Central Florida is not going to necessarily stop. There are a lot of the Latin countries are undergoing changes in their educational system, and so while those changes are in play, these students are migrating over here. Now, from the teacher preparation perspective, one of the things that I can say is that some teachers who are already in the classrooms, they may not necessarily have the preparation to deal with students that are coming in now, because those students are a little different. A lot of times we tend to group all ESOL students in one category, and they're different within that category. So for example, you may have students that have discontinued education. So these are the students that in their country, they weren't going to school. They haven't been to school maybe in a couple of months or a couple of years. For whatever reason, whether it's a political change that now they're not offering school, or maybe the teachers went on strike, as we've seen in Puerto Rico. Teachers went on strike for a long period of time, and so those students didn't have anywhere to go for school.
Right. In the United States, we're already in the process of raising standards, the whole debate about Common Core standards. Now we have the FSA, and if these kids are coming unprepared, how are they going to fare in a 100% English-speaking classroom?
Well, there's a lot of things that the teachers can do. So you need a lot of teacher preparation to be prepared for those students. So like I said, instead of grouping them in one, maybe use strategies that are well equipped for the beginner students, those students that come here with no English. One of the misconceptions that teachers have is that if they translate everything, then they'll get it. Well, not necessarily. Think about if I haven't been to school in a year and now I'm coming into Florida and I'm in the 8th grade. Well, I don't know anything about electromagnetic waves. I didn't learn that in Spanish, and so this is the first time that I'm seeing this information. So if you tell me to translate it, well, that doesn't mean anything to me in Spanish or in English.
Right, so not only are you going to have a language barrier, you're going to have a knowledge gap as well, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. But it is something that we can definitely address with the proper training and the proper tools for teachers. And I think teachers are partly there. I think it's just merging both the nonverbal communication, raising that so that we can communicate with the student. Because even if you can't convey to me, I understand what electromagnetic waves are verbally, you can at least show me. So I can ask you, which one of these is an example of electromagnetic wave? You can point to it, you can draw one out. These are all ways of nonverbal communication that I can assess that you are understanding the concepts in my classroom.
And now, you and I, we were speaking earlier in that, okay, you have a PhD, okay? So obviously someone or something motivated you, right? So when I read a lot of articles and read a lot of books, it always seems that you have the Asian kids at the highest, then the white kids, and then the Hispanics and blacks seem to go back and forth. Why are we always at the bottom of the tier? It just seems like we're always behind. What do you attribute that to? Is it race, is it income, or is it a combination of those things?
I think it's a combination of the two. I personally grew up in a very poor neighborhood. I grew up in the South Bronx, and I grew up in the projects. Personally, my parents pretty much only required me to finish high school. So it didn't matter what I did, whether I graduated with C's or D's or B's or A's, I just needed to graduate high school. And then that was like the end goal. After that, I didn't have to do anything. My parents didn't go to college. My mom, after I was an adult, that's when she started going to college. She hasn't finished yet, but she's going now. My dad never finished college. And so it's not necessarily to them that was the highest achievement. So now, as a parent myself, I don't require my daughter to just go to high school. We're always having this discussion of school is important. Where, what do you want to do when you grow up? What school do you want to go to when you go to college? Where are you going to get your master's? And I know it's kind of early because my daughter's doing elementary school, but these are the kind of discussions that we need to have. And as a community, I don't think that we do enough of that.
Yeah, but even with the process, it seems that a lot of kids, they don't know that there are avenues that exist. Like, there are a ton of online colleges, normal colleges, and people, they come to me and they say, oh, I want to improve my life, I want to go back to school. Something motivated you. How did you know the process of even how to apply to college if your parents had never even gone? What motivated you? One
of the things that motivated me, I shared with you earlier, I had more of a negative reinforcement. So I did have a teacher in middle school, my math teacher. She told me that I would never make it, and I'm sitting.
Were you being bad in the classes?
Well, no, not at all. I was in honors. Classes, but I was the only kid who had an accent because I didn't start learning English until I was in about 6th grade. And so this is when I'm coming in, I'm learning the language, but I had enough of the receptive knowledge of it to perform well on exams. And so they throw me in this honors English, honors math, and I'm swimming by as best as I can. But when teachers would ask me for certain things that they would ask other students, like, hey, can you analyze this? Well, here's where my barrier comes in. I can't do that because I don't have the language facilities to do that. Okay. And so I had teachers misconstrued the fact that I couldn't articulate my ideas with the fact that I didn't have the idea. And so they would tell me
But the teacher should have known that, right? She's a paid professional. Shouldn't she have known that?
She should have, but when I was growing up, the ESOL training and ESOL services that we provide now, they vary. And they weren't the same when I was growing up. And I grew up in a sink or swim. We're not going to give you a lot of the additional support that we give the students now. And so she told me that, and when I went to high school, I had another teacher who kind of resonated that sentiment, because I was Hispanic, I was growing up in New York.
So you had 2 doses of it?
2 doses of it.
Wow.
And then I grew up in the projects, and so I kind of felt like there's something that I need to do to get out of this situation. And so when I was in high school, I just talked to my counselor and I said,
so you actually went to the guidance counselor and said, well, that was good.
What can I do? And because I was almost done with school early, with high school, I had so many credits that I could graduate at 16, but I didn't want to be the only 16-year-old Hispanic girl in college. I decided to do a dual enrollment. And so I did dual enrollment in high school, and by the time I graduated, I was already a sophomore in college.
Okay, so you just took it upon yourself and you valued education as like, I want to get out of this stuff. And I guess we need to give more of that to kids, whether it be a career track or a college track. Hot off the presses, Governor Scott's been going around the state. They had to determine whether or not the FSA was valid. So they determined that the test scores were valid. Where do you stand, or what are your thoughts on school grades? You think schools should be graded?
I definitely think that there should be a measure where we can say the school is successful or not. I don't necessarily agree with the grades themselves because I think it gives a negative perception of it. I think parents, they would see, oh, this school is a C school, so I want to put my kid in another school.
What would you use? What would you use in place of grades?
I would maybe talk about what they're actually doing in the school, maybe have like a narrative of what they do, because schools have different approaches. They have different philosophies that they subscribe to. And I know that they don't necessarily like to voice those because we're not supposed to voice them, but I think that would be helpful. If I find a school that follows the same philosophy that I have, then I would be more likely to put my kid in that school.
Yeah, but that'd be kind of hard to define, wouldn't it?
Absolutely.
So A, B, C, D, F, that's pretty clear. Maybe they changed the F to E, so it didn't sound so bad, right?
Maybe a descriptor. I would say A, B, C, I'll be honest with you, if you're coming from a state that doesn't have grades, this means nothing to me.
Right.
You know, and it gives a bad perception. Personally, my daughter started attending a C school, and she found some very, very excellent teachers within that C school. But if I would have just looked at the grade and let this kind of persuade me, I would have changed her to a different school, which I could have, and put her in an A school. And just as well, maybe she would have luck in the draw and she got a bad teacher in an A school. So I don't necessarily think that there are a lot of things, a lot of factors that go into those grades that people don't talk about. You know, like maybe attendance. So if we had poor attendance for the test, the school grades go down. But that's not something necessarily that we discuss.
Okay, very good. You're a college professor. Do you think that colleges and schools are talking well enough so that the teachers are coming out better prepared to deal with low-performing kids?
That's a very good question. I know from UCF standpoint, yes. We are talking with what the teachers need to be able to deal with the kids that we have now in the school system. I can't say nationally that that occurs. I do know as personally as a student when I graduated from high school in New York, all of the standards that I met for the regents were part of the college assessments. So when I graduated, I actually graduated with a regents diploma, and it was equivalent to a lot of the basic information, all of your basic introductory courses that you need in college. So I was able to comp pretty much my entire first year of school. Now, I don't know that that happens in the entire nation. I know that here in Florida and Central Florida, we do talk to the state. We do talk to the school system to see what's going on in the school so that we can prepare our teachers effectively.
Right, because you were talking about those two teachers that gave you a bad dose of what education should be or what you are, but it seems that those type of mistakes should not be happening. And we have about 1 minute, so what is your response to that? So you think, I guess within any profession, that bad teachers can seep through?
Absolutely. I think sometimes when you have a high need for an area like science or math, you're so eager to fill it that when you're almost reducing the standards that you have for a teacher just to allow them to come in. Oh, they graduated, great. They have a certificate, great. You're not taking the time to really look at what that teacher's mentality is, what their philosophy is, their entire preparation is. And sometimes we do need to take a step back and look at that. And I'm not saying that they were bad teachers when they told me that. I just think that they had a very bad perception of what a young Hispanic woman would turn out to be, or what could potentially turn out to be. And I understand that the stereotype is there, but that doesn't necessarily mean that every single Hispanic female is going to turn out that way. Do
you think, I don't know, maybe some colleges do this, but do you think there should be some type of cultural class to say, okay, here, kids, here's what they may do in the hood? That is a discussion for another day, Dr. Rivera, because I've just been told we are out of time.
Not a problem.
Stay tuned for our next segment, and we have enjoyed Dr. Rivera. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
This show is brought to you by Boricua Beer, coming to your local retailer in September.
I am for the child who's had 7 addresses in a single year because she's in foster care, because her father abused her, and her mother couldn't believe her. She is the child I am for. I am a volunteer child advocate. I am you.
Florida residents call toll-free 866-341-1425.
Good evening. Welcome to EduTV. I'm your host, Greg Perkins, and our co-host, Lisa Garrigues. And today we have a visiting teacher, Miss Kristin Boemount. Welcome, Kristin.
Thank you.
Okay, Lisa, Kristin, okay. Standards have gotten so tough for even kindergarten teachers, because you guys are kindergarten teachers, correct? Okay, so can you tell me how standards have sort of migrated from FCAT to the new Florida Standards Assessment, the FSAs?
So FCAT was more of just kind of, do you know this? How do you know it? When did you learn it kind of thing? Where FSA is kind of like, okay, how do you know this? How are you going to figure this out in the real life? So instead of just the single A, B, C, D answer, it's more so, okay, well, explain to me why you know this, and then you're graded based upon that. There's also, okay, well, based on these answers, could it be multiple different things? Could it be A, B, and C? So that's a huge difference. Especially for the 5th graders who took the FCAT in 3rd grade, passed it, went on to the next grade. Now in 5th grade, they're taking the FSA, which is a completely different format with the rigor. Just like I said before, with the explaining, picking multiple answers where they've been their entire life have
so used to doing multiple choice
and been told, okay, you need to pick one answer, the very best answer, and that's been embedded in their head for so long. Now it's like, okay, this could be a good answer, so could this, fill them all in, you know, and so it's definitely different.
Lisa, with those challenges, how can parents be more supportive? Because a lot of times, education, the educational system, there will be a change made, and then the parents, they just have to kind of keep up with what's going on. What are schools doing, or what type of ways do y'all encourage the parents to either come to the classroom and volunteer, or to give kids advice on how they can better prepare themselves?
Yes, that's a great question, because parent involvement is huge in this transition. Especially in the first years of the child's life, where they need to be motivated. In kindergarten especially, they're not used to this structure. Even if they've been to a preschool before, it's more of a play setting, whereas now this is real school. Now we have to really focus on math, reading, science, and all subject areas. So I would encourage parents to volunteer in the classroom if they can, to speak with the teacher to see what's appropriate and when it is appropriate for them to come in. If I can't, or if they can't come into the classroom, I would even suggest that they ask the teacher ways that they can volunteer from home. I know a lot of parents, even single parents, can't make it physically into the school, so they can do things like helping out with homework packets, tearing out papers, helping with things like that from home. So the old days of kindergartners just sort of playing and being kids,
they are dead and gone.
They are dead and gone.
They are.
Well, they can play in a learning kind of way. We try to make everything fun, where we do a lot of cooperative learning. So even though there is structure, we want them to know that learning is fun. So it doesn't have to be this boring, old traditional worksheet type of classroom, where we'll break out into centers, we'll have them work in groups, we'll have them work with a partner, we'll have them share their answers in different ways, just to see what they know without physically having them to really write it down on paper.
So do you think that parents should push kids more? Because I was watching a video, it was President Obama with these kindergartners and first graders, they were called the Super Girls. And I heard these kindergartners and first graders using words like prototype and brainstorming. So are we saying now that we can just talk to the little kindergartners like they're little adults and don't dumb down the language? Oh,
absolutely. And a way we do that is, you know, because at first they don't know these big words, but these words are actually in their standards. You know, it does say listening and speaking, and with prompting, it does say all those things, but they are actually in our standards and in our learning goals. So a lot of strategies that we use in the classroom are a lot of I say, you say. We do a mirrors on, which just makes them reflect everything that we do and say, to get them really understanding what they mean. We use hand motions to really get them to understand exactly what the words mean and to remember what they mean. So for example, the word analyze, or the, you know, comparing, or things that, you know, you and I say all the time, but identify, you know, are things that we always say, but, you know, that's not something that they're familiar with. So it's something, you know, I'll use identify, you know, so that they really know that they have to recognize what the object or word or whatever is. But yeah, we use a lot of interactive learning with that, so that they can really remember what these new words mean.
And to add on to what she's saying, vocabulary is very important. So when they get to 2nd grade, 3rd grade, they're going to continue to hear these words. So why not get them started, a head start in kindergarten? If it's language that they're going to learn in first grade and second grade, third grade, and beyond. They're always going to have to analyze, identify, recognize, and do all of these things that the standards say. Why not get them to learn it and take it all in as a sponge now in kindergarten, so that it can be something that they are continuing to learn and develop as the content gets harder.
Now, one of the things I hear, and I have a few friends who are teachers, and I wonder how you guys find the balance between maintaining your creativity as a teacher and connecting with the kids while still making those challenges that are going to be required for those standards that the kids will be facing. So how do you maintain your creativity in the classroom?
It takes a lot of planning and preparation. I think that's the biggest thing. I think a lot of teachers in the past may have been used to depending on curriculum, depending on formats used in previous years, but I think a lot with us now, with us teachers now, is we sit and we plan for a long period of time, and we take the curriculum, we take the standards, and we pull them apart, and we say, okay, we have to teach them this, but how can we make this interesting? Because I mean, with kindergarten and first and second, for that matter, you have an attention span that's very small, and you have a lot of rigorous information that's being taught. And so how do you make that useful in the classroom? And so
rigor, what does that mean? Does that mean more homework? Does that mean really going into a concept more deeply? Like if a parent, and some parents are watching now, say, why do you keep using the word rigor? What is this rigor we keep hearing about?
Well, with rigor, it's definitely allowing the child to critically think and allow them to go deeply at their learning level. For example, if a child, or you have multiple children around the room working in different centers, you want to be able to allow the higher level learner and the low level learner to work exactly where they are. We don't want them to get bored. So if they're working independently for 15 minutes, are they just copying words? Or are they actually showing what they know by applying, let's say, sight words into sentences, or putting pieces of a puzzle together?
So the old spelling test is out the door. Just spell these 20 words.
Well, I mean,
you may say, hey Johnny, here are words. I know you can spell them, but can you also use them in a sentence? Is that what it's sort of migrating into?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you'll still have, I mean, last year I taught first grade and I still gave the standardized spelling test, but within that, you would take a comprehension test and a phonics test on top of these. So whereas, you know, in previous years or a long time ago, they just give those spelling tests. Now, at the end of the week, you'll have a comprehension test, you'll have a phonics test on whatever concept you're learning. Phonics being, you know, digraphs, the TH sound, you know, things like that. You'll also have that spelling, and you have to learn the reading strategies as well. So, I mean, there are many components of it. Yes, you do just have the standardized spelling test still, but like you said, can you take that spelling word and understand it in a story, or be able to, you know, sound it out in a story with your phonics?
And even with reading comprehension, Lisa, I think there's sort of like the 5-step process. So even for a kindergartner, if they can't read and read in the story, you can still teach them the sequence of events and break it down on levels. Say what happens first, what happens second, what happens last.
Yes, exactly. And to add to what she said, when they take reading comprehension tests, we'll notice that a child may be stronger in that area. So when we are working with them to individualize instruction, we can work on, is the child really understanding what they read? What are they not understanding? So if it is sequencing or comparing and contrasting characters or finding the main idea, we can actually work on that.
So in kindergarten, kids are learning how to compare and contrast.
Yeah, and it's something that is definitely newer, is introducing these reading strategies so early. Yes, they'll be tested on it throughout their education, but they have to be exposed to it enough now that when they get to first grade, they're able to take it to that next rigorous level where they're already taking it a step deeper in each grade level they're going to. The kindergarten, they have to be exposed to almost everything.
Wow, it sounds like these are little college kids. I mean, you guys gonna ask them to write research papers?
They are, man. K to freshman year in college.
The whole point is so that they can have like a building block where kindergarten, is the foundation of first grade, second grade. So it will only continue to get deeper. But they're already familiar with the vocabulary. They're already familiar with the standard. They already know, they have a general idea of what it means to compare characters.
And to take that a step further, I mean, with that, it's not that we're trying to suck everything out of these poor children, and we're not trying to do that. I think the main point of this Common Core and, you know, Marzano and things like that is just trying to get them ready for real life scenarios. So in kindergarten, they're learning the basics of all of it. And so then in first grade, they can go a step further. So by the time they're in their, you know, sophomore, junior year of college, looking to go, or I'm sorry, not college, high school, and they're looking to, you know, find a college to go to, they've got that real life concept of these strategies, these standards, because it's come from kindergarten all the way up, where they've been able to kind of go to different areas, you know.
And that has got to be one of the toughest things for teachers to do, because America is a diverse country, which means you're going to have a diverse group of learners in your classroom. How do you cater to the needs of each individual learner within the classroom? I mean, that sounds like a pretty tough job.
Well, we've had the privilege of working together, and what we feel works best is following the whole student learning cooperative approach, where you do teach whole group, especially when teaching new content, but you're doing it in different ways. So the child is not typically raising their hand and you calling on Johnny, who knows the answer, and the only students who participate because they know the answer. So what you do is you can say, turn to your partner, and if we're partners, I'm telling you what I think, you're telling me what you think, and the teacher is the coach in the classroom. The teacher says, all right, partner one, you say your answer, partner two, you say your answer, okay, now stop, everybody look at me, and maybe pick out a popsicle stick from some kind of tray that you have and call on someone, so that they all know that they're responsible for answering and participating every single time.
Which leads us to assessments, because a lot of times you read the paper, some people say, oh, we're testing the kids too much, but I guess just in education, assessment is just a way of using the data, right, to help understand, sort of like what a doctor does. When you go to the doctor, you say, okay, well, maybe you need to take this because this is hurting. So, and I think if maybe assessment was explained to parents that way, that we wouldn't be getting a lot of the pushback.
I think that, yeah, I think that parents have, and some teachers have maybe the wrong idea of assessments. I don't think that assessments have to be as scary as people might think it is. It's not meant to be scary. It's meant to, especially right now, we give a lot of tests. We even give tests that that we take in the middle of a chapter, just to see how the kids are doing, just for our knowledge, not to you know, scare the kids, not to even give the parents the data. It's strictly for us. So I know, okay, I need so-and-so, so-and-so, and so-and-so to be pooled to give them extra time to learn about.
Well, I have certainly enjoyed talking with you young ladies, and y'all are turning our kids into little scientists and astronauts. Thank you again for joining us on EduTV. I'm your host, Greg Perkins, Lisa Garrigas, and Kristin Boemount.
This show is brought to you by Boricua Beer, coming to your local retailer in September.